is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 406. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, it's my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
My man. All right. It's Know Your Rival season. I always enjoy this, because we get to make fun of everybody else, and a little bit more fun this year because we're not the ones picked to be dead last in the division.
No, in fact, I think we're kicking off our Know Your Rival series with not just the team picked to be dead last in the division, but a team that is a popular pick for being dead last in the entire National Football League. Yeah,
and rightfully so. We're going to talk a little Arizona Cardinals, do some crapping on the Cards. That's always fun. So we'll kind of get into that. There are some other things we want to talk about too, but now that we're here to this part of the season, we get to start easing back into our, once a week routine here. So thanks for bearing with us while we took a little extra time in the off season, tried to add a few other things in to tide you guys over, but it's quickly coming upon us, Brandon. I mean, you were saying just 2-3 days ago in the video that we recorded with Clinton, 3 weeks till the start of camp here and all that, or is it camp when they come back? What they've always got a different name for every time they come back. It's an OTA.
This is training camp that's coming up.
Well, there you go.
So, because you have mini camps, you have OTAs, you have off-season workouts, or I don't know. They have a name for everything.
Strength and conditioning program, all that stuff, right? So, yeah, here we are, man, and we get to start out making fun of the Cards.
Well, and speaking of important dates too, someone in the Discord was just pointing out this week that it is less than 30 days to go before the Seahawks kick off against the Vikings in preseason. So awesome. We're under a month until we're watching Seahawks football. And they did point out too, like if you're a degenerate football watcher and in for the punishment of watching the Hall of Fame game that's played in Canton, then that's coming up in about 3 weeks. But I don't know, man. I don't even know if I can watch the Hall of Fame game.
I usually watch a quarter only because I've been starved of football.
Yeah,
right?
It's like, football's back. And it's like, well, this is kind of football.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even know who we have this year in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
It's a bunch of dudes that aren't going to be playing in the NFL come the start of the season.
No, all true facts. All true facts. Which probably is the state of the Cardinals roster. I mean, a lot of those guys probably shouldn't be in the NFL come the season, but they're going to be.
They're going to be because the Cardinals need them. And I don't know if it's an intentional plan that they're just simply going for the number one pick with a new head coach. There's a lot that goes on with that. You want to, as a new head coach, you kind of want to go to a team that's set up for relative success. And when Jonathan Gannon came and did his introductory press conference with the Cardinals, he made it sound like one of the reasons why he picked the Cardinals was because they had a franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. But then DeAndre Hopkins, he's on his way out of town. JJ Watt up and retires. They allow Zach Allen, which is one of their top defensive linemen, to go to the Denver Broncos. And they're losing a lot of pieces. And so, okay, you have Kyler Murray, but he's hardly even going to play this season. So I got to wondering, who are the star players who are left on the Arizona Cardinals?
Budda Baker in a contract holdout.
Right. Who's probably not going to be with the team.
Yeah, probably not. I don't know. Who else would you even point to at that point?
And if I were Budda, I'd want out of there, right?
Yeah, I think it's time. Plus, I mean, I just don't know how long you can be saddled with that kind of organization in your career and be happy about it. Like, it just feels like you get frustrated and just need to go somewhere else. And it is interesting for somebody like Jonathan Gannon, who's coming off big success with the Eagles. He was their defensive coordinator, right? Like, right. I've got that right. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Because I could never remember if it was Steichen or Gannon, who was the OC, but Steichen was the OC. He goes to the Colts, I believe.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Gannon takes over in Arizona. I don't know. Maybe it pays to take that head coaching job, because once you've been a head coach, it seems like the recycled bit, like you get in the system. And so you can be one of the retreads relatively easily. So maybe it's worth it, but I mean, you're kind of set up for failure in who knows? We'll see what this new regime looks like in how much patience they have and all that stuff. With Austin Fort, the new GM. Probably the one thing I was most bummed about with the Cards this offseason, Brandon, was that they actually moved on from Cliff and Keim. Like that was a big bummer as a Seahawks fan. I was really hoping they'd hold on to those two for a little bit longer.
It is a bummer, but when you think about the fact that they still have the same exact owner, you see it in Washington with the Commanders. Year after year, yeah, they bring in different coaches, different front office people, and nothing changes because it has to do with the culture of what comes from the top. And so the one thing that I worry about with the Arizona Cardinals is once they sort out the situation in Washington and get that team turned over to a new owner, Arizona is going to be the team that would be the next one that I think the other owners would look at as maybe that's the owner that should be the next one to go.
Well, to be fair to the Bidwells, I mean, they're cheap. They're not like first grade catfish, like the Dan Snyder and
sure.
company were, right? So, I mean, think of how many years it took of Dan Snyder being Dan Snyder for the league to finally be like, dude, like seriously enough. Like it's time for you to go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
There have been enough things though. I wonder if
the Bidwells aren't stealing from the league.
Well, the thing is, Schneider, what do we not know though? They brought out that survey of the NFLPA survey.
Yep.
Of all the terrible things, the treatment of families graded out as an F among the players with the Arizona Cardinals organization. Nutrition, F-. Like they actually added a minus to the F specifically because it was so bad. F- nutrition, yeah. F- weight room, strength staff, A-. So, hey, that they're not just going down and giving straight zeros. They actually pointed to the strength staff and saying, oh, well, these guys are okay. Training room, F-. Training staff, B+. Travel, B+.
Okay, there you go.
I think they graded out higher in travel than the Seahawks did because I think that the Seahawks are kind of stingy with their first class seats.
I think the big part with the Seahawks travel is just that they travel more than everybody else.
Sure, that's a part of it too.
It's the most miles. Yeah,
and they're jerks about the first class and who gets it.
Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Maybe we can bang on our own organization a tiny bit there, but yeah, the Bidwells have been dysfunctional ownership for the majority of their time there. We'll see if it does change around. I mean, shoot, the Bengals finally brought in Zach Taylor, and the Browns aren't exactly known. The family of the Browns that own the Bengals, they're not known for being the greatest ownership group in the world. That's for darn sure. And they've managed to turn it around because they ended up with the number 1 overall pick. And I don't know about you, Brandon, but this feels like if you're the Cards, yeah, you're in on the Caleb-spiracy. Yeah, for sure. You're trying for Caleb.
So you're thinking that this would be Kyler Murray's last season with the Cardinals?
That was last year. I doubt he plays at all this year. That'd be my guess.
Because you don't want him to come back and then get hurt and then you can't find a trade partner for him at the end of the season. That's kind of what you're banking on. Because one of the things that they did do, I thought this was smart, was trading out of their early pick, moving back to pick 6. And they picked up another draft pick for next year from the Texans. And the Texans probably aren't going to be all that good this year. So they could have not only the number 1 pick if they finish as the league's worst team, then they could have Houston's pick, which could be a top 5 pick. And you saw Houston, what they did with their 2 picks. They get CJ Stroud. They get the top defensive player on the board in Will Anderson and at 2 and 3. And so the Cardinals could end up doing something similar with quarterback next year. And hey, even if they decide to go a different route, okay, DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, he's leaving Arizona. But if you pair Kyler Murray with the other receiver that's coming out of Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr.,
oh, he good too.
He's good too. So you pair that and you start to talk yourself into, well, maybe Kyler Murray could be the guy. We add an interior defender, one of the top guys, and maybe Kyler is the guy to carry us forward.
I just can't see the situation in which that's what they would do. I mean, shoot, they give him the contract, right? And, the infamous study clause that was in there that they eventually cut out, and then he does finally have one of the big injuries this last year with the knee injury, and little guy that has attitude problems that it really, I mean, you hear D-Hop even out here as he's now a free agent after they released him, kind of throwing some shade at Kyler in the terms of, we want somebody here that he will not only get himself going, but he gets everybody else going, and he's here for everybody else as much as for himself. Now, he never names names, but we all know who he's talking about. If you're Jonathan Gannon, maybe the reason you took this job was you're like, hey, we're going to be bad and we're committed to it. And Austin Fort's on the same page here. And we're going to go out and get us a different franchise quarterback and, start out with the coach and then a new franchise quarterback, much like the Bengals did. And that's what they're going to need to do, I think, to get over the hump here. I never believed in Kyler as a draft pick. I never believed him as a player. I never believed in Cliff. And I always thought that was going to be rinky dink and nonsense. And it was. That entire offense was a rinky dink college offense. And I'm not sure that Kyler is fully capable of playing any other way. It's a little like Russ and Russ ball that we've talked about ad nauseum over the years.
Yeah.
So if I'm Jonathan Gannon, do I hitch my wagon to Kyler Murray for my success? Or do I take the goodwill of my first year coaching, stink it up, get the first or second pick, and then be in position to take whatever quarterback? I think that's the way you would go.
At least you would have that option once you get through the year. And yeah, maybe they aren't set on that as the strategy right at this point, but go through a season.
Boy, it looks that way, don't it?
It feels that way. It looks that way. Whether it's going to be that way, I don't know. Because, hey, Jonathan Gannon, I don't know if you know this, but he knows how to win. He knows how to win, and he knows how to win because he reads books, Adam.
My head football coach at St. Ignatius just retired, Coach Kyle, but he wrote a book called The Object of the Game, and I think it's a manual that you can take anywhere and get a team running the right way.
So he is taking his cues from his high school coach on how to run a professional football organization the right way.
He's got the manual. What could go wrong?
It's a cheat sheet, the manual, whatever you want to call it. It's the answer.
To be fair, maybe his high school coach is an incredible human being and just never rose to the ranks because he just didn't want to. He enjoyed coaching high school. Maybe he's a genius. Maybe Jonathan Gannon has, basically the Bill Walsh playbook to building a new team.
Because one thing that we've learned coaching high school kids and coaching professional athletes who get paid the exact same thing. You would run the organization the exact same way.
It translates every time for life. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And the thing was, in the press conference, he almost made it sound like he has heard this idea of them being bad, wanting to lose games. And so he made a point of pointing out that the Cardinals are winning games.
Look forward to working with the players. That was very appealing to me. Some of the guys that we have on board right now, not too many times do you take over a team and you have a franchise quarterback. So that was very appealing. And I'll head some of this stuff off right now as we talk before we get to questions and things like that. But just know this, we're going to be very adaptable. I'm talking the Arizona Cardinals. This is what our team's going to be. We're going to be adaptable. We're going to be violent. We're going to be explosive, and we're going to be smart. And all three phases go into that. And we will maximize the talents of the players that we have, and that's how we're going to win games. And don't get it twisted, we're going to win games.
Don't get it twisted. Games, plural. The Cardinals are winning.
just got a nail too. He's just got a nail too. And then he lives up to his word. So,
yeah, it was some interesting components to that particular part of the press conference. For one, he says some of the guys he's excited about working with, not all of them. So,
yeah,
interesting little slip there. And then,
well, I think, that's normal for a new coach coming in, right? I mean, they're gonna clean house to a degree. I mean, Pete and John cleaned house as clean as you can get it when they came in after Mora.
And then we got to hear the list of all the things that it takes to become a winning organization that probably all came from that high school book that he just read.
Oh, absolutely.
Being adaptable and physical and smart. Violent. Yeah.
Are they going to fix their field?
He didn't. I don't think that came up in the press conference, actually.
No. Maybe it ought to have. Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit above his pay grade.
Maybe. Yeah. And that's one of the things about this year for the Cardinals that is really interesting, in the fact that Jonathan Gannon is a new coach, and we don't know. I mean, you're going to guess that he's going to run some stuff that he ran at the Eagles, right? On the defensive side of the ball, but also interesting that they bring in a defensive coach, with Kyler being supposedly the keystone to the franchise.
Right.
That's certainly very interesting to me.
It is interesting. And they bring in, as offensive coordinator, a guy who has not coordinated NFL offenses before. It's Drew Petzing. And his most recent stop was quarterbacks coach for the Cleveland Browns, where he was promoted just last year from tight ends coach. And he was the tight ends coach for the Browns for a couple of years. And before that, the wide receivers coach for the Minnesota Vikings. So, and a longtime assistant for the Vikings going back to 2014. So I don't know what the relationship was that got him tied in with Jonathan Gannon necessarily. I don't see where that connection is, but interesting, not only a first-year head coach, but a first-year offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and that's, you see me look down a bunch here, I was trying to figure out, like, who in the hell did they bring in as an OC? Because, you're bringing in a defensive-minded head coach, then, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to, bring in a guy that is good on the offensive side of the ball to basically handle that half of the team. So you said Vikings, Browns. Where else had he been?
Primarily Vikings, Browns. Yeah, he started out as an intern.
So is he a Stefanski guy?
It was Stefanski in Minnesota then before.
He was the OC in Minnesota, and then went and became the head coach of the Browns. So that sounds like he's probably one of the Stefanski's guys. If that's the case, that gives you a little bit of idea of offensive philosophy.
Right.
And Stefanski, I think, is a pretty darn good offensive mind. He got the best out of Kirk there for a minute. And now last year they struggled mightily, but they brought in a scuzzball to be their quarterback who hadn't played for 2 years.
Yeah, there's that. But it's going to be tough with all of these new pieces, with having a quarterback situation that maybe you're not quite sure how it's going to go. You and I believe we know who's going to be the quarterback in Arizona, just because, he's been such a problem for the Seahawks all these years with Colt McCoy. But they draft Clayton Tune. They bring in Jeff Driscoll. They have David Blau, who's, long time, who's been in the league a while and who is familiar to the offensive coordinator because Blau was also in Minnesota. So I think Petzing's bringing in guys that he knows then, and that could mean if Colt McCoy struggles in the preseason, that maybe one of these other vets takes his job, which would be okay with me.
Well, which one of these are we going to consider the backup number one, or are they all backups, and are we just kind of screwed? Because we all know that the Arizona Cardinal backup quarterbacks give us fits for like no reason. Like it happens every time. No, I fear Colt McCoy as a Seahawks fan, but okay. So Driscoll, Blau, Tune, or McCoy,
right?
Put them in a hat, draw a name. I mean, they're all the same dude.
Yeah, all guys who can hopefully run an off. Well, Clayton Tune, we don't know that because he's a 5th round pick at quarterback, but
sure,
he would be the guy that would come in, and it's not like he has a ton of competition to show that he can beat outright. And maybe he can run around a little bit and is a little bit more mobile than his competition. And that could be appealing with James Conner in the backfield. So your 1-star player, there he is right there. James Conner, because as we know, if Budda Baker moves on, that's about all that's left. I guess you do have Marquise Brown, who came over from Baltimore and is your one receiver too. But in ways of stars, James Conner, Hollywood Brown, not your top tier.
No, those aren't guys that you're thinking that you're going to the playoffs with on the regular as your backbone of your team. That's for sure. So Brandon, over under, how many Cardinals quarterbacks do we see this season? I'm going to say 2.5. What you got?
2.5 is an awfully good guess, because I would maybe take the over, just with that idea of maybe Kyler has some kind of miraculous recovery and he's ready by the middle of the season.
Even if he is, if you've gone 1-6, are you bringing Kyler in?
They might, just to show that he has recovered, especially if the plan is to use him for trade bait. Then you would want to put out there that he's healthy and ready to go. And maybe you can put something on tape that makes him more appealing as a trade candidate in the offseason.
Wouldn't you just do that maybe in the last 2 weeks? If you clearly kind of had the number 1 seed or number 1 pick locked
another
up.
Reason why I would take the over.
Okay.
Because then we would have seen 2 by then in the final 2 weeks of the season, right?
Right. So trotting him out to increase his trade value, to show that he's healthy and all that makes some sense. It's not a terrible idea. I would just be terrified of putting him out there and then, either getting re-injured or a different injury or look like total hot garbage. How much does it really increase his trade value with that contract if he comes out and plays good for 4 games, let's say?
I don't know. Quarterback contracts in the NFL are weird. Some teams will do weird things out of desperation. And
he's under contract for a while. So if you're
that could be appealing, I suppose. Maybe after a couple more dudes get their contracts, then Kyler's still he might be outside of the top 10 in terms of contract value by the end of the season.
Yeah, that might feel a little more palatable at that point. I don't know. It's a tough situation if you're coming in and you're the new guy and you're trying to figure out where to go. I just, have you even heard one report of like Kyler Murray's all in with Jonathan Gannon? Kyler Murray, has forged a new relationship with Monty, or whatever it is. I don't know. I
haven't heard a whole lot about Kyler, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And that would make me totally nervous as a Cardinals fan. I mean, a guy who's not super invested with anything other than himself, and then is now just kind of out in the wild and just doing Kyler things, playing Call of Duty. Like, is that all Kyler's up to?
You can make a lot of money playing Call of Duty. Maybe he just rolls his quarterback contract, what he's got left, and goes pro on the e-game side.
There you go. You could do
esports. Yeah, that's what they call it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he gets healthy and he decides, screw this, I'm going to go play baseball. But that ship may have sailed by this point.
Oh, I would think so. It probably would have been the better move, but who knows? He made it to his next contract. He got paid. So
got paid. And hey, keep getting them checks. I'm not mad at that. He's taken enough hits that he's
going to have
earned
something to prove too. He's going to hear the talk, and he's going to want to prove something, whether it's with the Cardinals or whether it's with another team.
Is he wired that way?
Aren't you supposed to be a professional football player?
Oh, you're supposed to be, but there's tons of dudes who have been a big time quarterback in the NFL, or at least alleged to be, in. They just weren't wired that way.
I think to get to the second contract, though, you have to be wired that way enough. I mean, not everybody is Albert Hainsworth.
True. Okay, that's fine. Oh, and I wouldn't compare him to that either. He's more competitive than that. He's got more grit to him than that.
Yeah.
But just cussing out Cliff on the sidelines and things like that. So
I think I would rather put him in a situation with a more veteran coach, because so many times young quarterbacks get paired with young coaches because it's an organization that is looking to make a change. So they change out head coaches. The more veteran head coaches don't want to go to an organization that's been struggling for a ton of years. You don't see that change.
Sean Payton wasn't knocking down their door. No.
And, how often does a guy like McVay come along that actually changes an organization? And he brought along a veteran head coach with him to be his defensive coordinator. So at least there was some veteran coaching leadership in the building. Here in Arizona, it doesn't seem that way.
I do like the idea of hiring a young blood, fresh coach. I do. I mean, think about how many guys have had success just in the last 6, 7, 8 years here now, whether that's Kyle or McVay or Campbell or McDaniels down in Miami. The coach of the Giants, Dable.
Dable, yeah.
He had more success than he ought to have last year. Salah's had some success in New York.
I mean, the one coach that you would point to who had success before, you put him in maybe the retread category, would be Andy Reid, who got the best quarterback in the league.
It certainly helps. Yeah. But a lot of the guys, whether it's Zach Taylor, whether it's, you can go down the list, right? I mean, there's been a lot of fresh blood come in as head coaches. I mean, Stefanski hasn't been a dumpster fire. O'Connell hasn't been terrible in Minnesota. Yeah. LaFleur was pretty good in Green Bay. So I'm mad because I like the decision of them going younger, some fresh blood here. Yeah, exactly.
Although so many of those coaches that you point to too are the offensive minded head coaches. And here Arizona goes on the defensive side. Sure.
Who's the coach in LA, the Chargers?
Brandon. Brandon is his first name.
Okay. I can always picture his face. I can never remember what his stupid name is for whatever reason. But, it's not like he's been a disaster in LA.
Yeah.
He was a defensive guy.
Brandon Staley.
That's it. Jeez Louise. That one always escapes me.
Yeah, he's been okay. They haven't quite been able to get over the hump.
And I like Austin Fort's moves in the draft. They got Paris Campbell, right? With their first pick.
Johnson.
Paris
Campbell's the wide receiver that was a couple years back, but
okay. It was one of the Paris.
One of the Parises. One of the two Parises that's in the NFL,
Yeah. Spending in the trenches early.
Yeah.
I mean, it just all feels like the way that you would set up an organization for a rookie quarterback that's going to be inbound and, turning the page, which they have to, right?
I'm intrigued by the Cardinals and the number of young guys they're bringing in, because that is the one aspect of this. If you bring in the new coach, you bring in a bunch of new talent, you get rid of some of these old guys who, you don't need AJ Green on the team anymore on a team like this, and get rid of these guys that really maybe they don't want to be there. Have an opportunity for a lot of these young players. It wouldn't shock me if they weren't the worst team in the division, honestly, if the Rams ended up taking that spot, just because they have so many. And I look at it just purely based on age. The Rams got a ton of old dudes, not a lot of young draft picks coming up to fill those spots. Whereas you look at the Cardinals, a lot of young talent that just came in through the draft, and which one's going to win out ultimately if, you're looking at 5-win seasons.
Yeah, it's not often that you have a draft class come in and be big contributors right out of the gate. The experience that we had last year is 12s. I mean, enjoy that, because that's relatively rare. It's not a thing that you hang your hat on. So all the young talent they have coming in.
Yeah.
Call me in 2-3 years when I've seen a little track record from Austin Fort and what's going on.
They'd still have building off of some of the young guys that have been there over these last few years too.
I mean, which ones? Because Simmons, their high draft pick from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He hasn't been crap.
I wonder if
they drafted another tweener that hasn't done anything.
Part of it could be, though, how the former regime is using these players. because now they have, you mentioned Simmons, now they have him listed as a nickelback instead of an inside linebacker, which if you look at the way Isaiah Simmons was used in college, he was a guy who was all over the field. And that's the one thing about the nickel position is you can use that as a chess piece and move him all over the field. He has that large size of, he doesn't seem like a corner, but he's kind of quick and nimble like a corner. And I wonder if they could use him in a way that's a little more interesting.
I mean, maybe
rather than throwing him in at the inside linebacker spot, and that's not what he was playing when he was at Clemson.
At least get him to the outside linebacker spot
or safety.
Maybe safety. It just seems like a third corner from a guy who used to play inside linebacker. That's kind of a stretch, man. I don't know.
He covered a lot of guys.
Where did you find that, by the way? Because I looked on the Arizona's website here, just as we were going along here to pull up their depth chart. And it was like, nope. We'll release that right before the first preseason game. It was like, oh yeah, no, hold all those cards close to the vest cards because you got state secrets going on there.
I use ourlads.com. They're pretty good with their depth charts, and it makes sense to me. So maybe that was just kind of maybe they have inside information. Maybe they're listening to the press conferences a little more closely and can kind of piece this together. It also wouldn't surprise me too if Buddha were to leave, if Simmons ends up moving back to that safety spot. It's just he has the speed and range that he could play a couple different spots. And
what does he weigh?
He was like 238 is what he's listed at.
It's a big boy for
6'4", 238. But
he'd be a massive safety.
Cam was a massive safety.
Yeah, I know, but Cam's Cam. Right?
He could be a baby Cam. I don't know.
No, don't you even try to put that out into the ether.
But as a box safety, that kind of size could make sense because it's kind of like being a linebacker.
Sure. Yeah, it's possible he could play like the honey badger role. That probably makes the most sense for him.
He was so good coming out of college, and I never did like that decision to stick him at inside linebacker. But so that's one of their young guys who's, he's actually getting toward the end of his first contract. But I mean, you go down the list on defense and it's a lot of these guys are guys who came out of the draft in 20, 21, 22. And then, the depth guys are all guys who were taken here in 2023 and some young guys too. So yeah, a lot of it's going to be how that coaching staff can either develop the new guys that they brought in, or coach up some of the guys who maybe didn't get the right kind of coaching from the former regime. But you do have to question it when one of their big offseason moves is bringing in LJ Collier to play on the defensive line, right?
Yeah, and watch, he'll show up there and play against the Seahawks twice and have 2 game record games, like somehow. Like that's usually how some of that stuff goes.
Maybe in those 2 games. I don't have a lot of confidence that...
he'll suck otherwise. Yeah.
You just be motivated in those games against Seattle if he makes the active 53 for that game.
Well, then there's that too, right? So we'll see how that goes. It is a team that, I mean, defensively speaking, they're going to have an extra hard time as well. I mean, just the Allen, the guy who went over to the
Zach
Broncos
Allen,
defensive. Yeah. He's a heck of a player.
He's really good. I was very happy to see him leave Arizona.
Yeah. And then I think it was Clinton was pointing out JJ's stats from last year.
Yeah.
They were still pretty damn good. I didn't realize he had produced that much while he was there in Arizona. They'll miss him as well. Wild.
And so they go from those 2 guys up front to having their front 3 be LJ Collier, Carlos Watkins, who is also they brought him in from Dallas, and Rashard Lawrence, who they picked in the 4th round back in 2020.
Yeah, they're definitely not tanking.
Definitely not tanking. And they lose Byron Murphy, their cornerback, which I guess he was okay.
Cards fans kept seeming to think that he was good or going to be good or on his way to being good. I don't know. but I never saw it. So it's a team devoid of talent. Hey, what's your odds on Budda Baker being there this year?
I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to find his way out. It would make sense for them too. Mm-hmm. And somebody's going to give up a good pick for Budda.
You get a third or a fourth.
Yeah. And you would take that as a Cardinals organization who's not trying to win anyway.
Sure. And I guess you'd have to get a feel for what his contract demands are. They might not be too crazy. Might just be the contract demand might just be get me the catfish out of here.
I'm telling you, it makes sense when you see all the veterans who have left. And if Kyler's not going to be there, a guy like Baker who came in 2017 as a defensive player, you're starting to look at, okay, hey, when am I going to have a chance to win a chip? And it's not going to be here for another 2 years, 3 years at best. And by then, they're going to have somebody to replace me at safety.
You'd have to start looking at it that way, I would think, especially for somebody like Budda Baker, who's wired in a championship mentality kind of way. I mean, that's one of those dudes that, if price wasn't an option and it wasn't the fact that we had 17 safeties already, that's a dude I'd be like,
bring in that guy.
Give me some Budda. I'll take that. You bet. Him and DK can have sprints in practice every week.
Well, it's not going to happen within the division anyway, but it's it's a lot like Aaron Donald, right? You look at certain guys on another team and you think, yeah, that's a guy that I wouldn't mind having on my team.
Yeah.
And he's the one guy.
For sure. He's the one guy. And for me, Brandon, it doesn't feel like this Cards team is going to be one that it was like last year's Seattle team where everybody was like, oh, no, they're terrible now, blah, 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 blah. The baseline of talent isn't there like it was for Seattle with the Russ trade. I mean, there was just so many more dudes on the team that you were like, okay, I said 9 wins at the beginning of the year. I think you did too.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the talent there, like I look at this Cards team and I'm like 3.
3 is what I look at as kind of the baseline. At the ceiling, I would say 6. Okay. And things have to go right in terms of being the first year head coach, putting a good offensive line. It would have to be Colt McCoy who gets the start if you're going to get to 6. And it's going to be, one of those Colt McCoy, hey, we didn't see this coming, but he's actually pretty good. And maybe we saw it coming because he always plays well against the Seahawks. But he has weapons. I mean, if all you do is have a good season from James Conner running the football, and with the addition of Paris Johnson on the offensive line, you got DJ Humphreys on the other side. It's center's kind of a weird spot that I have some questions about, but maybe one of those guys works. And he has weapons in Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore. They're able to, and Zach Ertz at tight end, Trey McBride. So it's set up to where they play a lot of 2 tight end sets. You got Ertz, McBride, your 2 receivers and Moore and Brown, and James Conner running the football. It could be a relatively balanced offense. And just as long as some of the young pieces on defense come together, 6 games, it doesn't seem out of the question to me.
As a ceiling, an absolute ceiling.
As a ceiling.
I would give it to you. I'd give it to you. But boy, I just think it's beyond unlikely. I do think that their offensive line group is one that has some talent and it is getting better. I mean, with the draft pick, obviously, and all that stuff. But I'm not a Rondale Moore guy. Never have been. I don't know. Zach Ertz is ancient now. Who else did oh, yeah, you said Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown.
Who I like, but
Trey McBride's a good young tight end. I could see him taking snaps away from Ertz.
Okay, that's fine. And James Conner hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while now.
No, and the health would be the big part of that one. And they don't really have, Corey Clement is who they have as there's in the number 2 spot there. Keontae Ingram, Tyson Simmons, and Amari DeMarcado.
You shaking? You scared?
After James Conner, there's nobody there that scares me.
No. So Hey, maybe our run defense will improve just by thanks to the Cardinals, playing that a couple times a year.
And you kind of have to figure that they're going to be wanting to run the football a lot. But they could find, I mean, there's still guys out there as free agents that they could bring in too.
Yeah, you're getting to the fourth tier or so of free agency.
And look, the Eagles have how many running backs? They're not going to be able to roster all those guys. Shoot, Rashad Penny might end up getting cut, and the first place he goes is the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, get out of here. If he stays healthy, he's RB1, RB2 on that team.
I don't know, man. They got DeAndre Swift.
He's damn good when healthy.
Oh, he's good. But they have a lot of... The Eagles took all of the guys that are good when healthy this offseason.
Well, there you go. They'll probably end up using them all. They better find a roster spot for them all.
Well, I'm just saying you have to worry about now with that Eagles connection and there being quite a bit of talent in Philadelphia that could funnel its way down south to Arizona.
Yeah, you think a lot of the talent is going to flow from the Eagles, just kind of traditional.
Well, the runoff talent, because it was like in Seattle with those years after they went to the Super Bowl, right? They couldn't keep everybody.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Gannon knows who those guys are who were talented in Philly, but maybe didn't have a chance to show it. They might be willing to come to Arizona and show it out there.
You never know, man. I mean, you're going to probably see some of that. I mean, that's a natural progression in the NFL. I mean, guys like their guys and people that they're familiar with. So yeah, we could see that. But I mean, overall, I just don't see any difference makers out there to be had now. Short of maybe D-Hop, but obviously
he's not coming
that's
back.
not happening. No, exactly. Or maybe Dalvin Cook. I mean,
there you go. See, that would be the running back that is out there.
Strikes a little fear in your heart.
That would strike a little fear. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Anything else that we have to say about this Arizona Cardinals team that's definitely going to be terrible this season?
Thanks for playing. Thanks for being in the division. We appreciate, the 1 to 2 free wins a year. It's
yes.
Great.
Please start Clayton Tune or David Blau when you play Seattle.
Yes.
And leave Colt McCoy to the bench.
Yeah. Because I'm going to have my irrational Colt McCoy fear in full force when those games happen.
It's only natural.
Yeah.
On to the second half of the show.
All right.
As we get into the second half of the show, Adam, we are going into the Wayback Machine. And it feels weird to call it the Wayback Machine at this point because the 2014 season when the Seahawks were going to attempt to win their second Super Bowl, that's almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah. It has been a minute and definitely frustrating way for that group to kind of end their run going to the Super Bowl.
A team that nearly won 2 championships. And the farther that we get from it, the more I feel like we have to cherish that group of guys because we're never going to have a team quite like that again. You look back at all the personalities that were on that team, all the talent that was on that team. And, just in the time since then, you've never seen anything close to it, not just in Seattle, but in the NFL.
Especially defensively speaking.
Yeah.
They may be the last great defense to be fielded in the NFL for a while.
Yeah. And calm down, Niners fans, that you have a good defense. Just because you have a great defense right now.
Win a chip first and then talk to me about it.
Yeah. Win a chip.
No, they've been great in the regular season when healthy.
And shoot, maybe if you even had a quarterback who was as talented as Geno Smith, maybe you would have had a shot at winning a title last year.
Well, they did until he got hurt.
Well, health is a part of talent.
It surely is. It surely is. But yeah, almost 10 years ago. And I don't know, Brandon, we talked a little bit about it. I think you went back and listened to it. I listened to KJ Wright's podcast, KJ all day. If you haven't checked out some of his stuff that he's been putting out, definitely do it. It's a lot of fun for, kind of reminiscing a little bit about those years and those guys and all of that. And it's worth a listen, but he recently had on Luke Willson, and, as much as I was like, oh man, like going to be all the bro speak and, I'm going to get annoyed and
all we're going to talk about is short shorts and techno music.
And they did, but dang, it was a good listen. And there is a number of things that popped up to me from that I think are important. I know some people are tired of talking about that Super Bowl and the play that should not be talked about, but there was things that came out of that I really do think were important and worth discussing, especially since it's this time of year.
Well, and the funny thing is that a lot of the things that I clipped, I mean, it's all tangential to the play that shall not be talked about, but it's a lot of that of a lot of the reasoning behind why people were so frustrated, not just on the defense, but also on the offense. And so we got to hear some of the things that we just, as fans, I don't think that we'd heard before. And for us to be this far out, and for some of the players who were on the team to still not have complete clarity of things that happened, some of the things that they did know that hasn't come out. Also, it's just new information. One of the things that I found interesting was the play that sent them to the Super Bowl was something that was cooked up by Darrell Bevell. And you could hear from Luke's voice in this that he has a lot of respect for the Seahawks former offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell.
I love Bev as an offensive coordinator. I know some of the Seattle fans didn't like him, but I think he was handcuffed in a lot of ways. We'll probably get into that. But Bev came in on Wednesday, the NFC Championship game, and was like, yo, we've got a crazy thing. There's a Dom Capers. Is that the Dom Capers will just call cover zero anytime, anywhere, one per game. One time. Could be any down distance, could be anywhere on the field. He's done it every single week. And he's like, and what's weird is Tramon Williams plays outside leverage. He goes, I don't give a what personnel is on. We're checking 50 Cobra, and we're throwing a post to curse. Boom. Sure as we get to overtime. I'm sitting in my 3-point stance. I hear Russ. I think we were in 2 tight end set and a fullback and a running back. Will Tukwafo ended up playing receiver. Well, I hear Russ, check 50. Cobra. I'm like, holy boom, touchdown. We go to Super Bowl.
I had not heard that story before as to that play that, I mean, we all remember that, just an incredible comeback and a game that maybe as Seahawks fans, we should appreciate a little bit more. I mean, just the result of the following game was it hurts so bad, but that was one of the more incredible comebacks in NFL history.
That was one of the craziest games I've ever watched in my life. And that was on 4th down too, wasn't it?
No.
Or was it third?
And it was the 2013 championship game that was to curse for the go-ahead touchdown. I think that.
Yeah.
But no, that was. I think it might have even been 1st or 2nd down because it came after a big 3rd down catch by Doug.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's a sequence there, but. A couple of things that's interesting from that. Number one, just Luke's praise for Darrell Bevell. That was something. And you're going to hear more of that here as we kind of go through some of these clips. And, he was a little, quote, handcuffed. That was definitely a little shot at Pete right there. And then to know that Russ, he audibles to that in the game and makes a big throw. Obviously, that's because he listened to coaching and he was coachable. And he was willing to do that stuff in the moment. And yeah, what a wild game, man. I'll never forget that game and the onside recovery by Matthews and just all of it. I mean, and how bad Russ stunk early in that game too, to put us in that position.
4 interceptions in that game and still able to come back and get that win. That is a miserable game to rewatch, by the way, for the first 50 to 55 minutes of regulation play. It is a miserable watch. After the Sherman interception early on in the game, it was just miserable.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I haven't watched it in years, so I'm going to take your word on that and probably avoid
in the 3rd quarter, you did have the John Ryan pass to Gary Gilliam for the touchdown at least got them a touchdown on the board before the 4th quarter.
And John Ryan face throwing the football, that's always entertaining.
But that was it. That was the one highlight to be had between the Richard Sherman interception and let's see, what was the next thing that actually happened that was I think, yeah, it was a funny thing is I think it was the play that we'll hear shortly, 94 Buck, which they ran down on the goal line against the Packers. And I think we can remember the play because it's the one where Russ fakes the handoff to Lynch and the entire defense goes to tackle Marshawn, and then Russ just walks into the end zone. That's 94 Buck, and that'll come into play here soon. But the point of the first clip was that Darrell Bevell, he had the plan for the one play. He also had a plan for when the Seahawks got down to goal line in the Super Bowl.
The next week, Bev comes in and goes, hey, if we get down to it, and again, he didn't do it. He didn't just we always played like safe, like things we knew. He's like, we have never gone to goal line all year. We have the greatest goal line matchup against these dudes. If we get down to the 1 yard line, we are going to goal line personnel. They will have no idea what's going on because we've never shown it all year. And we're going fullback at 0. We're putting Turbin at halfback, Marshawn at fullback, Russ, Max Unger was playing center. Russ, you're going to take the snap. You're going to get out of the way. Marshawn, you're going to run straight down Max Unger. And whichever way Max kind of shields, you go the other way.
I had no idea about this.
KJ, this is the first that he's hearing about this. And
his face.
I know. We all feel it. And I think, many of you listening who maybe even haven't listened to the KJ Wright, Luke Willson interview yet, it's you get that sinking feeling. But part of it is just worth it knowing just how much it hurts the players still. Just that, I don't know, it hurts them as much as, it matters to them too. It mattered to us. And so we have a little bit of that in common. So before that happens, they get down to the goal line.
So I'm right there. I'm like, ball bounces up. Hurst catches it. I'm like, oh, ball, we're on the 6. Mm-hmm. We call first and goal. I'm like, all right, we call 19 force, which is wide zone to the tight end. So I'm like, Luke, you better get your right. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. Get down here. I stalemate, probably won the rep late. Wasn't like a great block, but I'm like, this should go. Boom. I see Marshawn inside it. Pause. I see Marshawn cut inside. And I'm like, oh, and then he gets shoestringed. Yeah. Like he got shoestringed. And it's funny because in that situation, it almost would have been better if we missed the block, or not for me. I had the kind of outside backer, but whoever was climbing up to that linebacker, because then he probably tries to take Marshawn up like around the waist, and Marshawn probably drills him and runs in the end zone.
Yeah.
But we basically got enough linebacker. I can't remember if it was Hightower who just clips his ankle. Boom. Mm-hmm. That moment, I remember thinking to myself, great. Okay. Great. He got tackled on the half-yard line. You couldn't write this out better. Either the timeout's getting called or chewing up more clock. This is exactly what I'm thinking.
So great. Luke is the reason why we lost, because if he does a worse job on his block, then he thinks Marshawn gets in on that play.
Well, it's interesting too, because you hear him say, well, he got shoestring. That was like the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Not maybe the most unlikely, but it was, of all the results on that play, that's a pretty unlikely one. And it's like, if almost anything else happens, they score right there.
Uh-huh.
Just stupid Patriots catfish and luck for that to have happened. And yeah, I watched the play, and Luke does win his rep at the end of it. Like, that should have been a freaking touchdown just right there. And I don't know about you, man, but in the moment, was I thinking, great. I was like, yeah, we're right here. Give it to him again. Here we go. I'm pacing the living room. I'm talking catfish to all my friends, like to Bronco Jared and everybody. And then this is what happened next.
I'm on the field. We get tackled at half, and I think, great. And my next thought is, holy, this man Bev is a wizard. He did it again. Because the play to Curse was, don't get me wrong, Curse made a great play, phenomenal catch. But you got to give Bev props. And now all of a sudden, I'm like, how did this game's going to come down to the 1 yard line. We're about to destroy here Marshawn fullback. And then all of a sudden, 11 personnel gets called. So in my head, and again, it was very strange for me because
11 personnel. Go ahead, explain it. Yeah. One running back, one
tight end, 3 wide receivers. Traditionally more of a passing personnel.
This kind of breaks up to where you hear about the personnel package, you hear about what Luke thinks the play is going to be, and then what he realizes the play is going to be, and it's here in a couple different clips.
I'm in year 2 still, and I don't know how you were in year 2, but I was never thinking like, yo, Bev's going to call this. I was always like, I need to like lock it in out. I'm never thinking about like what he's going to call. I'm listening like, what is the call? What is my job? So that was probably the first time in my career where I was like, I know what's coming. As soon as he said 11, I'm like, he finna call 94 buck. And the best part of 94 buck, and KJ get mad right now. KJ get mad.
I'm fuming right now.
The best part of 94 buck for me is I'm going to block a DB, and it's a lose-lose. He goes inside, I'm going to pin his ass in. He goes outside, I'm going to bully him outside. I'm like, bro, next thought, do not jump offside. Luke, you got the easiest job out here. This guy's giving up 30 pounds on you, and he's going to lose. All you got to do, arc to the end, Russ makes a read, game's over.
Right.
Game's over.
Okay.
He has one running play in mind. He hears the personnel package, so now he has another running play in mind. And this is when he realizes it's not a running play.
We get in there, and Russ starts calling the play. And on offense, formationally, and I'll be studying, where like there's only certain formations that go with each play. So the way we called it, I'm like, we don't have Buck out of this motion. And then all of a sudden, the motion across, or like he kept going on his, again, Russ is talking him in the huddle, and I'm like, oh, maybe they're trying to dress it up with some motion. Like, even though it wasn't in our playbook, our end formation is a place we can run Buck out of.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it was like, I think it was pivot halo was the play. I'm pretty sure that was it. 2 scat. And I'm like, oh, damn, like we're throwing the ball.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Catfish! Pivot halo forever. I never want to hear about that play ever again.
No. In fact, I'm a little bit upset that that's what you jumped in just to even bring it to say those words again.
I didn't know that those were the words that described what the hell happened out there in terms of the play call. So now I know.
So not only is it the play that shall not be talked about, it is the play call that shall not be spoken of.
Yeah.
So why didn't Luke say something in that moment? I guess this is a common question that he gets from Seahawks fans. Why?
But I love
Luke?
that KJ asked it because 100%. Yeah.
It's like it's a thing on defense. It's a thing on defense. Calls have come in the huddle, and we like, what are we doing right now? Why are we calling this play? Call something else. But we just literally like, we're not running this play. You didn't have that on offense.
I'm in year 2, bro. You think I would be like, hey, that shit, call something else?
That's not you.
Absolutely not. People like, Luke, why didn't you say something?
Max Unger and Marshawn and Doug and Jermaine, like, that's not Luke Wilson's place.
Well, that was one of the things that KJ said. He's like, if I would have known that you had this play to Marshawn locked and loaded, I would have run on the field and called timeout if I would have known that it was a pass.
Man, and it's just, for the longest time, I've always blamed Bev probably a little too much for this. And we'll talk a little about that here in a minute when we get to some of the things that they were told after the following week.
Well, and that's the thing is that from his comments, I don't know if they've really ever been told enough, or they've just heard so many different things that they don't know what the exact story is. What
just happened? Like, and you're still searching for answers. Like, in my head, I was like, how do we not call the goal line play? Like, how do we not? We practice it all week. It's a goddamn wedge block. It's the first thing you learn in Pee Wee football. Like, how do we not call it? And then it's like you start hearing all, like, to this day, I don't know, but you'd hear all these rumblings like, so-and-so wanted it. No, so-and-so called it. No, it just was like the better look. Then you heard later on that it was like, well, we were going to call it, but then Matt Patricia just put on a goal line defense, so we thought we had a great matchup. And it's like, I don't know what to believe.
Exactly. He talks about his confusion, and then a little later in the pod, him and KJ are talking about the meeting the week after where you kind of have the tell the truth Monday kind of thing. And
Right.
everybody,
Some of the players didn't even show.
Some didn't. I don't blame them. But what I got out of it was, one, we know it's not Russ's fault. It's not something he audibled into. Now, I think a lot of us didn't think that was the case to begin with.
But the question's out there is
it's legitimate. I mean, you don't know for sure, but now you know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That Bev really was in love with the passing game, more than the run game. Nope. He wanted to go big boys and hand it to Marshawn. Like, that's what his big little plan was, and never got to run it. That nobody knows where the call really came from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who really decided that? And then they show up the week later. And to me, Brandon, I think as much as I love Pete, and I love Pete, I think this was his biggest failing as the Seahawks head coach, is what happened the week after the Super Bowl, because they go in and they start talking about it, and they ask him, they ask all the coaches, so what happened? And we don't know. It just happened. That was the answer that they got.
Right.
It just happened.
Yeah.
And nobody took responsibility for it. So how is it that, and maybe Pete did this and we just don't know, or he did it in the meetings and people were like still in such grief that it didn't really sink in. But how does he not stand up in front of the team and be like, it's my fault? Long and short of it, it's my fault, and I failed you guys, and I'm sorry. Let's go get it next year. And then you wouldn't have all of the things, because the other stuff that Luke and KJ talk about is how much the team fell apart after that, how the brotherhood was broken after that, and all because the number one question in my world, Brandon, and you know this, is why? Why? I need to know why.
And that's what I mean. So Pete may have gotten up and said, yes, this is on me, because we've even heard him say that, right?
No, but it needed to be like in that meeting that week.
This is why it's on me. And that's the part that he didn't give, apparently.
Right. Because every one of these players is like, I don't know. And it really did lead to the unraveling of the team and the culture and all of those things and everything that Pete preaches, and always competing and all that, and owning up to your mistakes. And that they would have gone to one more Super Bowl if that was handled differently. And I'm not talking about the play on game day.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the aftermath. The aftermath was handled terribly.
The only why that I remember hearing from Pete about that situation was that they practiced pass in that situation because to give them, so they wouldn't have to burn another timeout if it ran incomplete. And so that was the one why that we've heard. It's not a great why, but it is the one.
That was a why lie. That's what that was. That was a why lie. I mean, at the time, I didn't buy that.
No.
And obviously that's not the reason he gave the players when they sat down to talk about what happened.
Yeah.
He didn't give them that reason. That was just lip service to the media,
I suppose. Yeah, because that would
That's
be
my take of it anyway.
Be a why that you would say to the players is, hey, this is what we practice in this situation on goal line every time we throw a pass on second down, because with the time situation, that's how we practice this scenario down on the goal line. But thinking back to the video, it is Bevel that says, you want to pass here, right? That he says to Pete, and Pete nods that off. So we have that component that we can kind of piece there, is that Bevel asks Pete if he wants to throw.
He did. But at the end of the day, I mean, Pete's got to come out that week and put his arms around all the dudes and take all the blame. He just has to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you end up with what you ended up with. And, they tell a story of that week that offseason when they came back. And, one of the offensive coaches being like, oh, everybody talks about the pick and throwing it there. But, if I had told you we were up 10 heading into the fourth and this defense let him off the hook, we didn't win that game, what would you have said? And apparently that made Earl Thomas catfish furious.
The thing is that's something that fans say. If you're a coach on the team, you don't say that.
You don't say that. No. And that just shows you the cancer that infected the team after that. And, again, I like having Pete Carroll as my head coach. I enjoyed what he's brought to Seattle. He's maybe my all-time favorite head coach as a Seahawk here. But with that said, this does feel like to me that this was his biggest failure in his tenure as Seahawks head coach.
Oh, easy.
And we can't get back to winning until they've gotten to the spot where they are now, where they're devoid of everybody who is on that roster short of Bobby.
It was fascinating to get more information. I know I thought about skipping it. And so I'm hoping that bringing it here at least gives people enough of it that you get the enough out of it that if going back and listening to it was not appealing, you got some of the information that came out of that interview with Luke Willson.
But there was lots of other really fun stuff throughout that interview. So
like Luke prophesizing that Geno Smith was going to be really good.
The day Geno Smith showed up to Seattle, I was like, this cat is different. And at his first couple of weeks there, I'm like, what's the matter with him? There's got to be something the matter with Geno because he's a backup. Why is arm accurate as shit, strong as shit? I'm like, he must be the jackass in the locker room. One of the best locker room guys ever been around. Yeah. Oh, he must not be able to read a defense. Absolutely not. I mean, by far in my time in Seattle, he was our best backup quarterback. He could read a defense. Mm-hmm. He was doing, you're on scout team versus their defense. It's going to be a little tough. And he was making as hard as he could on y'all. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm like, so he is smart and he's athletic. He's sneakily athletic. Like he can run. He can move. He's not like immobile. Mm-hmm. He can run around. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what is the matter with this dude? And then all of a sudden it was like day in and day out. Like maybe he doesn't care about football. Wrong again. This guy's working. He's watching film. He's doing all this waiting on his moment. So all of a sudden everyone thinks I'm Nostradamus, which I'll take that. Because at the beginning of last season, I'm like, yo, he finna ball out. And everyone's like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, watch it. Watch what happens.
So you knew he was going to ball out.
100%. And the time Russ got hurt, when he went in the year before, everyone was like, Geno's fucking up. Absolutely not. If you watch the game, they handcuffed the living shit out of him. Mm-hmm. Okay? And basically didn't call no plays. Mm-hmm. We're like, yo, we're going to play this super safe. They finally this year, and I knew they would as soon as they named a starter, be like, yo, we got to unlock the door and let this dude out the cage, man. Let him rip. And now you see what happened. And he's only going to get better. Mm-hmm. And they got the dude from Ohio State.
Adam. See, even these longtime vets are excited about Jackson Smith and Jigba coming to the Seahawks.
Yeah, the hype is real, and everybody's stoked, and hopefully it all pans out just as it should, and everybody predicts. But, yeah, Luke, one of the few people to go ahead and predict that Geno was going to be good. That wasn't me. I was wrong, but I didn't have a front row seat to the Geno show. Like
Luke did.
Yeah.
That clip brings me so much joy. Just hearing he going through the same thought progression that I think fans do. Yeah. Like, oh, there's got to be something wrong with Geno. And him having that front row seat to go, to have all those same doubts and be looking for him right in front of his eyes. Yeah. And to be shown and proven wrong on all of his doubts to the point that he really believed that Geno was going to be the dude.
Just waiting on his moment was all. That was it, according to Luke, and he wasn't wrong. So that was super fun. Another thing to come out of that was a $1,000 bet or $100 bet between G and because G Scott is co-host with KJ on the pod. KJ and G make a healthy wager on whether or not Russ has a bounce back year this year in Denver. So that's fun. KJ predicting emphatic that Russ is going to have a bounce back year, which I tend to agree with. G couldn't disagree more, and they put their money where their mouth was. That was fun.
I suppose I lean more KJ's side too, but G had some points to where we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. No, none of us are going to know.
I'm not dead, sir. No.
Well, thanks for hanging in there while we took a trip back through memory lane and some tough moments that we normally don't like talking about.
A little bit of explanation, even if it was through the form of there was good explanation. You know what I mean? Like just knowing that it does kind of tie a bow on things a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. I can't imagine what else we're going to get from here on out.
No.
Unless, Pete writes a book about it.
He'll probably write 2 books about it.
You gotta keep getting them checks after.
Keep getting them checks, baby. Yeah.
And we keep getting them checks from our executive producers, DCH, Brian Shaw, and Rebecca Christensen. We've also got some new members of the flock. Blue Carter joining in. You're a boy, Blue, in at $3 a month. Welcome to the flock.
Heck yeah, man. It's exciting to get new members this time of year. This is the hardest time. And when you come through like Blue, then you're our boy, Blue.
Also coming in, Gareth Barnett in at the $12 level in the British monies.
Heck yeah. Appreciate that a ton. Enjoy the Ring of Honor in the Discord, man. All that good stuff. I'm going to enjoy the pounds.
Thank you for the pounds.
Yeah.
Also, thank you to Andrew Thackerberry, who gave us a raise, went up to the $60 annual donation, made the switch. Andrew's been with us since 2022. So thank you to Andrew.
Heck yeah, man. See, not only did he enjoy it enough to get in the flock, but the experience has been so darn good that he had to increase it. So
putting a ring on it.
That's quite the testimonial. Yeah.
Next year.
Are we just engaged to him now? Is that where we're
anybody
at?
Who wants to go annual
Is it a
to
promise
year to
ring or
year,
an
I
engagement?
feel like it's a commitment. It's
is.
like, okay, well, these guys are going to be around. Like it's been 10 years. It is safe for me to put my down payment on the full season.
That's true. I can guarantee you, short of death, we're going to do this all year.
Kelsey Anderson gave us a raise from $3 to $12 a month. So thank you to Kelsey.
Heck yeah, Kelsey. That's awesome.
And I also have Lisa in Seattle back in here at $25 a month. Lisa, been with us since 2017.
Oh yeah, man. She's one of the heart and soul flockers right there.
Yeah, Lisa, Greg, both of them just consistent.
Yeah.
Freddie also back in at $12.12. Freddie joined us in 2021, and Freddie says, Brandon and Adam, I am back after a season without being in the flock. I have been a freeloader for a season. I didn't like it. I missed the Pick'em League. I missed the Discord, and I hated knowing each and every time I listened to the pod in which I very much like I was not contributing. So I am back. I hope that on the horizon is a great season of Pick'ems, Discord discussions, and with my Hawkra in the correct place, we can make a run to destroy the 40 whiners and be in our rightful place, the top of the NFC West. Bobby is back. We had another great draft, which I admit I was wrong about Jay Carter and wanting him so bad at first, and think that we have a 2 to 3 year window to go for another ship. Either way, thanks for the pods, and hope maybe we can get a few more normal shows as the weeks go on and we get into the season. Don't hate the extras. I just love the normal pod. Might not agree with all the takes, but still love the convo, and that's what this is all about. We all love the Hawks, and we just want to see our team win. With that being said, forever, go Hawks. P.S. I would add this, since Adam did create the hashtag Let's Ride Curse. Do you think we could see another one this season? Not about Russ, but something that Adam sees happening. Hopefully, something against the 49ers or Rams.
Well, I'd
use your powers in another way this year, Adam. Come on.
I mean, I don't know how consistent I am with those powers, like that's might be one of those walk-off homer kind of things where you just kind of leave it be, but I'll have to think on it. It did seem, I don't know, likely-ish that Russ would struggle in Denver and that the Broncos were going to struggle more than most people thought.
Yeah.
And the way that people hype things and all that, it made me mad. So that's where the curse came from. So I guess I'm going to have to find that next story that really does. It's got to come from like legit anger, I think. I think that's where the power was.
It's got to come from anger from you. And then I think we have to buy into it all collectively. Because I think that's part of the power of it, too. It wasn't just you. It was all of us also wanting and believing that it would happen.
Our combined Hawkra together is what,
is what made it
got
work.
us that. It got us Witherspoon, man. Be happy.
John Davison in says, "Hi, fellas. Thought I owed you some thoughts, and last week confirmed my thoughts. So here we go. I long since grew a pair. but would like to say if anyone should be outraged by your accent attempts, it should be me.
That's true.
If you ever had the pleasure of meeting me, you will know that Brandon's attempt at my accent is not even remotely close.
That's what's beautiful about it.
That's what he said. But it's bloody funny. I laugh and I am not outraged because I have grown a jolly good pair and I am rather attached to them and was recently tested and my snowflake level is 0%.
Perfect.
On a far more interesting note, I watched the draft and have heard all the shows about our new players, so this is what I think. Firstly, I was surprised by the draft, but not by the end of it. When I looked, we had drafted all the positions I wanted us to, but they weren't in the order I was expecting. I was rather like playing a tune on the piano where all the notes were right but not played in the correct order. However, having done the research after, I think we did well, and things will work out just fine. My thanks for all the research you did on this, as after Super Bowl info tends to disappear over here. Until it all kicks off again, apart from Pro Football with Chris Sims and Mike Florio. Jury's out on that. Barry the WC is well and happy the drunk has sold up, so is looking forward with some hope. I WhatsApp with Bloomy now and then, but as you know, we met up at Wembley as Newcastle United got a cup final for the first time in over 20 years, and we managed a beer. Barry and I noticed you had a bunch of tickets for the Commanders game, but it's not looking likely we can get over for that one. I know.
Boo! Come on, John and Barry. Do better.
Exactly. Yeah. Come on, you can make it. I did send him a message privately and say, try
Are you
hard.
Sure?
Try
is he sure?
Are you sure
that they can't make it? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. He says, however, we did get tickets for Baltimore Ravens versus Tennessee Titans at Spurs ground, so we are going to London for the weekend on October 15th. I have been in touch with Dave B, and he has a ticket too, as a fat-ass corporate freebie. But we are all going to meet up, and we'll be headed for the Rocket Pub on the Houston Road, which you know well, even if you can't remember it. Oh, we remember the Rocket Pub. That was a great spot.
Oh, yeah, that was a hell of a time.
Seahawks were 66-1 for the Super Bowl, but are now down to 40-1. So I guess that's a good offseason then. Go Hawks from the Bard.
Go Hawks, John. Always great to hear from John and vicariously Barry as well through all that. But it's the season of optimism, man. And it's talk yourself into it season. And I see John's in full swing after going through the draft like I did and being like, come on, man. Like, I wanted this, I wanted that. And just like he said, just different order, different tune. Maybe the music will be better.
Big thanks to John for checking in. And yeah, man, if John can't make it, then that leaves 2 more tickets open for anyone else who wants to join us. I did post up at getintheflock.com. So for all of our members of the flock, you have first dibs on those tickets to the group game against Washington. Tickets are $125 a piece. And so if you're a member of the flock, go to getintheflock.com. All the details are there. And then probably we'll give it a couple weeks and then we'll open it up to everybody else who listens and give you a shot to get into. Still lots of time for that game against Washington. But if you haven't yet gotten tickets for the game against Washington, then maybe you want to hold out. That way we can sit in our group section up in 301. We are undercover for the game. I know that's we've had a few games, Adam, where our group seats were not undercover.
That's right.
It was not a fun time.
No, it was a little brutal. So I'm very excited about that.
And we also lost when we were not undercover.
It's true.
So I changed it up.
It was the Sky's fault.
The Sky's fault that the Seahawks lost. And it was our fault for picking seats that were under the open sky.
Yeah.
So, in effect, it was our fault that the Seahawks lost those games.
Feels right. Yeah.
Won't be our fault this time. We fixed it.
No, we're nailing it this time, and there's no way Sam Howell is good. There's no way the Commanders are going to be able to beat the Seahawks in CenturyLink. Not CenturyLink, but whatever.
Seahawks Stadium, Quest Field. We'll figure it out which one it is by the start of the season.
I don't know. They got to quit changing the name on me, man.
I know. it's Lumen now. For anybody wondering if we actually know or not.
No, I knew. It's just one of those things that, when I don't think about it for like 4 months, then it's just a little muscle memory there in the brain.
It's like anything. You gotta work out that muscle, or you lose it.
Yeah.
And so there goes our Lumen sponsorship. Thanks.
I was gonna say their marketing's doing great for me. So yeah.
On to do better and better at life. And I'll kick it off with my do better this week. Mine is for SI.com's Fan Nation site. The worst sports site I've come across recently.
Oh,
judging.
Okay.
It's bad. And it started with this headline: Fireworks trade sees Lions land wide receiver Cooper Kupp. I'm thinking, oh yeah, Cooper Kupp to the Lions. Yes, the Rams are getting even worse. So I click the link, and for one, it's about some hypothetical trade that hasn't even happened. But not only that, it's not even original content to SI.com's Fan Nation site. What they did, the author, Vito Churko, he has a write-up that's talking about an article by Alex Ballantyne on Bleacher Report. The Bleacher Report article accurately titled Firework NFL Trade Ideas That Would Transform the League in 2023. So this was a July 4th article that was like, oh, we'll come up with firework trades that, I guess I'd never think of a trade causing fireworks, but around, I guess, the 4th, it made sense for the article. Anyway.
I guess, yeah.
So it pulls that and just change it to this fireworks trade. It was the type of thing that if you see those like purely for social media on Facebook that pop up in your feed, you're like, oh, I'm going to click on this because it looks interesting. I was so mad because I want the Rams to be even worse than they are. And I thought there was just a glimmer of hope.
What was the trade?
Cooper Kupp to the Lions.
Yeah, for what?
I don't know. Draft picks.
Oh.
The Rams need draft picks because they gave them all away to try and win the Super Bowl. And so it was Cooper Kupp and getting draft picks. And it's not that out of the question with having made the connection there with Jared Goff and getting Matthew Stafford. So it was one that when I saw Lions and Cooper Kupp, I got excited. And so for Vito Churko to come up with this stupid trade that didn't even happen, that was a hypothetical trade anyway, that suddenly got proposed as to being a real trade, and also all the stupid pop-ups that you get barraged with while you're trying to read the article, do better.
Man, do better. And it's just
I was also a mini do better for Alex, who left the Seahawks out of the conversation for any fireworks trades in his article.
That's fine. They can keep their fake drama away from our team. I'm good with that.
I wanted a trade proposal at least from Alex. Like if I went through the process of tracking the article back to the original source, I wanted to see some Seahawks content, and I was again disappointed.
I got you. Well, that's what we're here for, man. We got to create the Seahawks content because there's just so much.
Well, what time have we ever proposed some crazy draft scenario that as hypothetical? We don't do that stuff.
People maybe think that what our serious ones are probably crazy anyway. So maybe they think that anyhow. I don't know, but 'tis the season, man, right? Like, gosh, all the nonsense headlines, all the nonsense lists, all that stuff.
I expected that, but it was just the quality of the site that was also terrible. That
disappointing.
It not only disappointing, but needed me to call it out to do better.
All right. Well, maybe they'll take that to heart and they'll make some improvements, man.
Shut the site down. Maybe that would be the
all I
best
know
start.
is if you've disappointed Brandon, like you should take notice. Yeah, because there's nobody more forgiving in the world. So do better. All right, man. My do better this week is for ESPN. I don't know how many people pay attention to like sports media news and things like that, right? But there was an apocalypse of firings and layoffs here over the last couple of weeks, and some big names along the way and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
but they've done him catfish. Got Brandon.
Oh,
yeah. Because you know who was among the laid off? None other than Matthew Hasselbeck, Brandon.
Yeah.
They laid off Matthew Hasselbeck. You can't lay off Matthew Hasselbeck. Like, he's one of the all-time good dudes of good dudes. And he provides great commentary. Like, what are you doing?
How do you not find room on your staff for Matt Hasselbeck?
I have no idea. But you keep some of the other flamethrowers on some of these other talking head shows that just do things like Brandon just talked about on his Do Better.
Take Pac-Man Jones off of the Pat McAfee show and put Matt Hasselbeck on there.
Absolutely. Make some room for Matthew. They've got 14 people on that freaking show. They don't have room for Matt Hasselbeck, a former Colt on top of that, right? That should be
one of your guys,
link up.
Pat. Come on.
Yeah. Just absolutely absurd. I was very mad to see that. Nobody treats my Matthew like that. ESPN, do better.
Yeah, that was disappointing. Well, another thing that's disappointing about that is now we have this much more competition in the podcasting space. Like, all the people that got cut, they're starting a podcast.
It's a true fact. It's a true fact. That's fine.
That's what happens. You lose your job, you start a podcast.
That's fine. Iron sharpens iron. We'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true. None of those guys are starting a Seahawks only podcast. Not even Matt Hasselbeck.
Ooh, I don't know, man. You guarantee that?
What we should do is we should sign Matt Hasselbeck.
We should sign Matt Hasselbeck.
He's a free agent.
Yeah. I wonder if he'd work for the salary we'd offer.
I mean, is the salary that we offer like part of his golden parachute that he gets from ESPN?
No, you think he would just do it out of the kind of his heart because of the golden parachute, right?
And chip off some to us for doing the production work.
There we go. Yeah, we've put in the groundwork of 10 years.
We got this
to build
started.
This thing up, Matthew.
We walked so we could run with Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah. So if when Matt's listening to this, I'm gonna need him to reach out.
Soon we're going to be giving Matt a Better at Life for helping us propel the show forward as our new co-host.
He's going to need to sign up first.
Well, yeah, but I'm just anticipating that.
Oh,
like he's going to hear this and he's go, I've been waiting for this offer to come in. Let's make this happen.
He's
guys.
Probably like, it's about time. Jesus, I just
waiting for you to ask.
Just
waiting to be unemployed by ESPN.
Right.
Best thing to ever happen to Matt Hasselbeck.
Probably true.
On to Better at Life. My Better at Life this week, I got to give it to my daughter, Adam.
Yeah.
Went in for her driving test this past week. Passed her driving test at 15 years old. I'm still not sure. Like after you pass the test and you walk out with the copy of your driver's license, the photocopy, because you haven't got the real one yet. That one comes in the mail. But I guess she can just drive wherever now, like all on her own, which is wild to me.
Yeah. She's free now.
She is. But it almost didn't happen. And it was because of her maybe too much of an honest personality. Because as we were sitting there waiting for her to take her driver's test, they have an app now. And I'm sure if anybody has kids who have gone through driver's ed, it's probably pretty common that they have an app that they're supposed to start and stop to help log all of their driving time. Because this wasn't even a thing. I think when we were kids that we had to log so many hours before it was exactly. And so they have to just
don't run into crap when you have your learners and coming to pass tests, you're good.
Now they have to do 50 hours. 10 of those have to be night driving, and it's all logged in the app. Well, all of her friends that had gone first, they're like, oh, they didn't even ask for it. Don't even worry about it. She had 45, and there were a couple times that we didn't even start the app. So we figured, she was close anyway.
Well, just to let you know, like I may have turned the app on when I was traveling for work, twice, just to kind of pad Isabel's stats when she was doing hers.
You did let me know about that tip, and I probably should have taken you up on it as we got a little bit closer. But because we had heard from others that they don't even check anyway, I wasn't concerned. We get in there, we sit in the waiting room, and the first two people that were ahead of us go, and they ask both of them. You have you have your 50 hours, and they take out their paperwork or they take out their app and they produce proof. And her and I are kind of looking at each other like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And when it was our turn to go to the desk, the lady somehow got distracted by something. Oh, because the computer wasn't working. It was putting in some weird date for one of the other things that she was trying to do. So she got all flustered anyway. And it was time for her to take the driver's test. So she didn't even ask about the 50 hours. They go out to take the driver's test. I'm thinking, okay, hey, we're in the clear because she didn't even ask. Hooray for us. We're good.
Yeah.
Well, they get back. I ask her, how it went. She gives me the thumbs up. Went well. So we go through the rest of the process. And we're waiting for to finish up the paperwork. She had already signed and taken her picture and everything. They actually had her sign and take her picture for the license even before they took the test. I'm like, this is great. This is real optimism here,
baby.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we sit down. She's finishing up the paperwork, and I don't know if there was something on the wall that talked about the 50 hours, but my daughter blurts out, "I don't have my 50 hours."
Just couldn't hold it.
Just couldn't even hold it in. And I kick her without making it obvious.
Yeah.
And I give her the look like,
and I was here, kid.
And the other thing, I was hidden behind the monitor. So like I give her the eyes. And I said, well, I mean, she's close on her app, but there were a couple times that we didn't start. I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was the other thing. So as soon as she said, I don't have the 50 hours, the lady says, well, we can't complete this transaction, and was totally serious about it. And that's what I said. We got 50. It's just, we don't have it on the app. And she's like, oh yeah, I totally understand. When my kid was going through it, we left the app on. And
it ended up with a zillion hours. Yeah.
So she just had me sign a piece of paper and it was all good. But for my daughter, for being so overly wanting to tell the truth, and for passing her driver's test, she is better at life than Skip Bayless.
Well, congratulations to her. Major condolences to you and your insurance prices, and next level of worry that you get to deal with now. So,
well, you know what? She has her friends to worry about now, because she is not the one that you invite to parties where there's any illicit activity that's going on, because she will drop the dime on you.
She doesn't know that stitches get stitches yet, huh?
She may not know that yet.
Or maybe she's the one who doles out the stitches. I don't know.
She's the one that snitches on herself. So,
oh, that's funny. See, the driving test for me personally, that was one of the best days of my life. So I get done taking the test, and the driving instructor walks out, looks at my parents, and goes, "Must be hard to live with." And they're like, "What do you mean? Like, he's all right." And he's like, "It's because he's perfect." Because I drilled it. I just nailed it. Yeah. Even my parallel parking. Yeah.
She didn't quite nail it. She I felt bad because part of it was my responsibility, because rather than drive the car that she'd been driving for her driver's test, we had her drive ours, and ours has the automatic headlights when you drive at night. So they had her turn on the headlights, and she's like flipping the windshield wiper fluid and
it's a new rig. I do that every rental I have. Yeah.
So she got 2 docked points for not knowing how to turn on the headlights. And
that's some bullshit catfish right there.
I know.
Now I'm mad.
Yeah. And then there are other points that she lost. Were kind of BS anyway. Like she didn't go when she could have gone. So she was being too cautious.
On a driving test.
test.
Let's ding you for that.
She took a turn a little too wide. And they didn't see her physically move her head to look over her shoulder, and she like barely bumped the curb under parallel parking, which was otherwise perfect, but just barely grazed it.
Dang,
fun times.
Pretty funny, man.
Who do you got for Better at Life?
All right, my Better at Life this week, Brandon, is for Richard Sherman and Bam Bam Cam, because one of my favorite things, we just went over some former player stuff earlier in the show, right? And some of it was bummer stuff. But one of my more favorite things about that era of Seahawks is how connected a lot of those dudes still are, and how they're taking the next step in their lives. Like you see Sherman with his podcast and all the media he's doing.
Thursday Night Football. Yeah.
Freaking crushing it, man. Just crushing it. Now, Cam, you don't hear as much about because he's not quite as flamboyant as Sherm. I think we can all agree on that one. But saw today that the two of those guys are teaming up to open a high-end restaurant in downtown Seattle together, and they're going to name it Legion. And I just think it's so cool that these guys are still so close, that they're moving on in business and trying to, make a name for themselves in that way as well, and still creating things in the Seattle area and all of that. These sort of things warm my heart each and every time. Sherm and Bam Bam, better at life than Skip Bayless.
The fact that they have stuck around and been such a cool part of the community, and not even those guys, but you got Sidney Rice, who's been a business owner in the area, KJ Wright sticking around and doing media, Robert Turbin, who's done a lot of media in the area too. It's it's just cool that they've stuck around. You got Matt Hasselbeck coming out and coming back home after his gig with ESPN. He's going to be in the area and doing the podcast with us. So lots of cool stuff happening.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. So just fun to see. I'm really looking forward to 10 years from now when we're looking at this group with that same sort of fondness because of all the joy and the future championship that's coming our way. And the best part is this season is the sweep over the Cardinals that's about to occur, because screw the Cards. I hope we crapped on the Cards enough for you earlier in this show. And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.